It's now 4 o'clock in the morning in New York, 1 o'clock in the morning in California, where they have not yet decided who they want to be president of the United States. But ABC News believes that that's academic, that the rest of the country has decided that Jimmy Carter will be the next president of the United States. 88% of the nation's precincts have now been counted, and Mr. Carter is holding a 51 to 48% lead, which has been going on since 8 o'clock. It hasn't deviated 1 percentage point since then. About 36 million votes to President Ford's about 34 million votes, about a 2 million vote margin. In electoral votes, according to ABC News projection, Jimmy Carter has got 272, 2 more than the 270 minimum needed. Gerald Ford has 186. There are a couple of big states still to be decided. One little footnote to the evening, Eugene McCarthy, the independent candidate, the hero of 1968, who may have been decisive in a couple of states that went to Gerald Ford by drawing votes away from Jimmy Carter. He spent the night on a commercial airline flight from California to Washington. There were only a few reporters and no election backers on hand to greet him at the airport when he hit Washington. They asked Eugene McCarthy for a comment, and he said he had nothing to say.
You know, this is going to be a very tough period, of course, for Jerry Ford. We have not had an incumbent who has lost since Herbert Hoover, and that was back in 1932. Only 7 times in American history has an incumbent president not been reelected. It's a sad historical footnote for Gerald Ford. We're talking here, yes, as we are waiting, we understand that Jimmy Carter is shortly going to make an appearance, and we're waiting for that.
Barbara, a republic is very unkind to its politicians in office, but once they're out of office, it tends to be very kind to them. So Jerry Ford can choose between running for Congress and getting $47,000 a year or becoming a lawyer for a big firm and making $100,000 plus a year.
He had said that he was going to retire from Congress. Now it will be interesting to see whether he indeed does that.
And right now, down at the World Congress Center in the Omni Center in Atlanta, Georgia, we believe we can call in Bill Werdum, where they are having a victory celebration.
Well, Jimmy Carter has just entered the hall with his family and his close friends. He's just up on the podium now. And at least, in spite of the lateness of the hour, there's still a good 20,000 people here to welcome him. His sons, I can see over the heads of the crowd, his sons and their wives standing on the podium, looking expectantly down toward the VIP aisle where Jimmy Carter and the Secret Service escort will be passing at any moment. It's been a long wait. It's 4 o'clock in the morning here in the East. The last hour or so, I've seen several people dozing off, several people going home. Presumably they have jobs to go to tomorrow morning, or this morning rather. But the vast majority of the people have stayed here. We're now seeing some more heads pass across the top of the crowd. I'll see if I can identify them for you, if I can. Hamilton Jordan, the campaign director, is there. Greg Schneider's one of the campaign brains, one of the men who helped direct this campaign to victory. Just approaching the platform now is Carter's press secretary, Jody Powell, who is more than just a press secretary. He's a confidential aide. And now it would seem that Carter himself is entering the hall. These final steps tonight must be the lightest he has taken on this 22-month-long journey to the presidency. He said over and over, and especially in the last few weeks, that he did not intend to lose. And there were some of us who doubted that, but apparently he knew better. I believe you can hear, Harry, the ovation he is getting here from this tired but very gleeful crowd. Everybody's on their feet, standing on whatever they can stand on, chairs. There's Jimmy Carter now, up on the platform. That's his wife, Rosalind Carter, and the press vice guest standing next to him. Greeting friends, relatives, his sons,
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you, everybody. Let me say just a word. Let me say just a word to you. This tremendous crowd at 4 o'clock in the morning represents hundreds of millions of American people who are now ready to see our nation unified, and I want to congratulate the toughest and most formidable opponent that anyone could possibly have, President Gerald Ford. As I've said many times throughout this nation, he's a good and decent man, and no one could have a campaign that had to be so thoroughly organized, hard-fought, and which has marshaled so much cooperation from hundreds of thousands of people around this country who've had confidence in me. And I pray that I can live up to your confidence and never disappoint you. We have a great nation, as you know, and sometimes in the past we've been disappointed at our own government. But I think it's time to tap the tremendous strength and vitality and idealism and hope and patriotism and a sense of brotherhood and sisterhood in this country to unify our nation, to make it great once again. It's not going to be easy for any of us. I don't claim to know all the answers, but I have said many times in my campaign around all 50 states that I'm not afraid to take on the responsibilities of President of the United States, because my strength and my courage and my advice and my counsel and my criticism comes from you. And if I can tap the greatness that's in you and in the American people, we can make our nation's government great and a source of pride once again. Are you proud of our nation? Do you think we can help to unify it and bring it back together? Do you think we can put our people back to work? So do I. And I'll do the best I can. I'll do the best I can during this transition period from now till next January to continue to learn how to be a good president. And I've learned in the last 22 months, I believe, as well as any human being could have learned, what our people are, what we have been in the past, and what we can be. And I believe that this next 4 years, that we will have a sense of purpose, a sense that the government belongs to us, a sense that we participated in this campaign, and now I welcome all of those in the United States, whether they, like you, supported me or supported Mr. Ford or someone else. It's time for us to get together, to correct our mistakes, to answer difficult questions, and to make our nation great. I want to thank all of you. I love everybody here. You've been great to me. Thank you very much.
think it's a remarkable fact that
It's gonna be a good administration.
in
Let's all get to
January,
work
this
to make
man
our
could have
country great
walked
once again. I'm depending on you like I have in the past. I'll try not to disappoint you. Thank you very much.
not been recognized by anybody, and now, within the year, he is President-elect of the United States.
I think there are some of us here at ABC, Howard, who might take some small pride. 3 or 4 of us talked to Jimmy Carter in this building just about 1 year ago, and after the conversation said we may have talked to the next President of the United States. It's just that there aren't enough people at that time to talk to him, but he clearly stood out from the mob of Democratic candidates at the time.
So Jimmy Carter with his 3 sons and his daughter and sisters and brothers-in-law surrounding him.
Down at in the building in Atlanta is Sam Donaldson, who's been almost a member of the Carter family for the last 8 or 9 months.
We're right here at the steps. Governor and Mrs. Carter with Amy between them, giving his famous victory sign to his supporters down here. And they're standing here. They have, just as you know, delivered to the crowd his speech of victory, saying that President Ford was a good and decent man, that he was a worthy opponent, but that he now felt that he was in a position to learn to be a better president himself as the days went on. Hamilton Jordan just coming up, his campaign manager. Jerry Rafshoon, the man who brilliantly ran his advertising campaign. Pat Caddell, his pollster. Frank Moore, who helped him in the southern states and was a coordinator, just now embracing him. Jody Powell, his press secretary, who started out with him as a driver. Phil Lewis, who helped him out in several key states. Phil Wise, rather. Many of his advisors and some of his key members coming on the stand with him.
We're all in it together. We're partners. And I'm looking forward to the next 4 years. Thank you very much, everybody.
And some of his family friends from Plains in the background. Of course, most of the people on the stage are his family, except for those advisors who came up here at the last. Mrs. Carter's traveling companion and press secretary coming up in the red dress to say hello. Now let's see, perhaps they're looking for some other people to thank. Vicki Rogers, who was the first scheduler for the campaign and scheduled us all into those horrible hotels and 18-hour days, but apparently with some efficacy. Other members of the governor's family and staff, and he's coming down here now. Governor, congratulations on your victory.
I'm sorry?
Congratulations on your victory.
Thank you very much.
What's your next step?
I'm going to go home and celebrate in Plains.
When do you think you're going to start putting your cabinet together, Governor?
I don't know yet.
Well, that wasn't much, but at least we have some idea that I think we already had, which was that he was going to go home and rest and celebrate there, of course, in the early morning hours, and then maybe in a couple of days put the family together, or rather put the cabinet together. I guess the family is together.
Sam, it should be noted that this is a celebration without a concession. The last we heard from Tom Darrow was that President Ford had gone to bed believing that he was still going to win in an undecided election. And so far as we know, there has been no statement from the president.
Also, of all of those people, there's one face that you didn't see, and that is Jimmy Carter's friend, oldest in years and oldest in terms of that relationship, and that's Charles Kerbo, the Atlanta lawyer who first encouraged Jimmy Carter when he was had lost the race for state senator. That's a long time ago.
Some time ago, someone noted that at 3:15 this morning, President Ford went to bed thinking he will win, the White House reported. I hope he's not subject to what happened to Charles Evans Hughes in 1916 when he ran against Woodrow Wilson. He had a big lead in the night, so he went to bed. A reporter banged on the door in the middle of the night. The butler came out and said, the president's asleep. And the reporter said, well, when you wake him up, tell him he's not president. Coming up next, more of our continuous election coverage right after this.
We now have a president-elect, Jimmy Carter, but a president, Gerald Ford, who has not conceded the election and may indeed have been asleep for the last couple of hours. That was the last report. And also standing by in Arizona, the man who was Jimmy Carter's probably most indefatigable opponent in the primaries. We were going to talk to Mo Udall, but right now in Minnesota, we have the vice president-elect, Walter Mondale, coming out to make a statement. Walter Mondale, who may have had something very substantial to do with Jimmy Carter's close victory.
Mrs. Peterson, do you hear me?
Mondale was picked by Carter after a rather elaborate search through the possible candidates, designed to wipe out the memory of some recent unfortunate vice presidential selections.
Hello, Senator. What are you feeling?
Great. Everything's marching.
He's making his way slowly to a podium. Roger Peterson is in Minneapolis with him. Roger?
Yes, sir. Senator Mondale has just arrived here in the ballroom. The crowd has been waiting very anxiously for the past 50 minutes, ever since the victory was projected. There's the senator up on the platform now. This group has been waiting very patiently all night, and it's been up for grabs for about the last 35, 40 minutes. People who had left earlier seem to trickle back in, and the place is jammed wall to wall with people. That chant of "We want Fritz" that you heard coming in, that was the senator's son throwing some apple cores out to the people. The senator and his family up there on the podium and listening to the cheers. Pretty soon we'll have a statement from him. I assume it'll pretty much echo what we heard from Governor Carter down in Georgia. That was piped in here, and the crowd reacted here just like they did down in Atlanta and at Plains. Here is the senator.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. In the proudest, we got to get this over with sometime. In the proudest moment of my life, I am proud to say that I've never been more honored than to be the vice president with one of the greatest men in American history, Jimmy Carter. Thank you. President Carter is going to be one of the great presidents in American history. He will help unify this nation. He will help gain momentum again. He will help us return America to full employment and to the kind of compassionate and caring nation that we want to be. He will need all of us, regardless of political party. He needs the help of every American, and I know that he will have it in the great task that's ahead. I want to just thank everyone for their help for their kindness, for their understanding, and for their love. There are so many in this nation that have helped make this victory possible, and I'd like to just name a few. First of all, my family. Joan and I are terribly proud of Teddy, of Eleanor Jane, and of William. They've been great through this whole campaign. And the best campaigner in the Mondale family is standing to my left. She went all over this nation, tirelessly, effectively, and now I had the best staff that anyone could have. And three of them are on the platform with me tonight, but they represent the whole staff. Dick Moe, Mike Berman, Jim Johnson, and while he's not here tonight, he's been with me every day of the campaign and every moment of my public career. And tonight, Minnesota showed what they think of that great man, Hubert Humphrey. And I want to especially thank everyone here and the citizens of this marvelous state of Minnesota. You've been kind to me, you've been understanding, and I'll never forget what this state has meant to all of us. Now the job of running this country is ours, but we cannot do it without your help, and without the help of all Americans, and without the help of Republicans and Democrats and all Americans. We must reunify this nation. We must get back to work. We must do those things that show that special dimension that we call America. We must do it again, and we will. And with that, I want to thank all of you. It's after curfew. You're all supposed to be in bed now, but I can tell by the look on your faces that might be a little while off. Thank you all, and we'll see you all at the inaugural. Thank you very much. Thank you.
We've been watching Senator Walter Mondale make his victory speech in the Leamington Hotel in Minneapolis. He is also making it in the absence of a concession statement from the incumbent president. But he is part of a state which now might be called the mother of vice presidents, Humphrey and now him. And we're going to talk more about the results of this election after we pause briefly for our stations to identify themselves. 4:30 a.m. in New York, and the first president of America's third century has been elected. Jimmy Carter, a Southerner, a Democrat, has at the moment 272 electoral votes according to ABC News projection, and there are still some states to be decided and a couple of important races to be decided. We had started to talk briefly a little while ago before we went out for Walter Mondale's talk. We had started to talk to Congressman Mo Udall, who kept at it longer and overall with more general success in the primary competition against Jimmy Carter than any other Democrat. He never quite beat him, but he came close a number of times. Congressman Udall is standing by in Arizona. Can you hear me, Congressman?
I'm with you, Harry. Still alive out here in Arizona.
One of the things that has interested people, including the pollsters, is Jimmy Carter's selection of Walter Mondale. There's a suggestion that it may have helped. Do you think it helped him win in this narrow election?
Yes, when you win by this kind of a narrow margin, anything that has any appreciable impact helps. Fritz Mondale was Jimmy Carter's first big decision. It was the right decision, and I'll always believe that he added 1 or 2% to the margin, and we might be having a different story here tonight if he hadn't picked him.
You think Senator Mondale will be an influence on the administration as apart from the election?
No, I think he will be. You know, all the presidents say, for the first time, I'm going to make the vice president really an important part of this operation, and they never do. But Fritz Mondale knows how to get attention, and I think he's going to demand attention, and I believe Jimmy Carter will maybe give him a little bit larger role than we've seen in the past.
In the case of a president who has no Washington experience, I should think Mondale will be more valuable to him than in other cases.
He'll be even more critical, as you indicate, and Jimmy Carter's going to learn some things about Washington. We're all going to have to help him, and I think he's a good man, and I think he's going to do well. This crazy system of ours worked. It's kind of a poignant evening for me to sit here thinking where he was and where I was a year ago. But
let me ask you something. Is it ironic to you that in the one state where you almost beat him, that is the state that put him across and gave him the presidency? Wisconsin?
Yeah, it really is. You know, it was only 6 months ago we were in Wisconsin that night. It seems like 6 years, and 1% or less than 1%, Jimmy Carter won, and out of there got the momentum that gave him the wins in Pennsylvania and so on. But this is a skillful politician. He's a good man. He's a skillful politician. He had the right kind of game plan, the right kind of hustle, and he got the right kind of luck at just the right point all throughout the year.
Mr. Udall, you said a moment or two ago that Jimmy Carter's going to have to learn a few things about Washington. What advice would you give him about having to deal with the Congress?
Work with the Congress, take them into your confidence, learn how it operates. There are key people in the Congress, not only in the leadership but in the committees, that you're going to have. My second piece of advice would be to use that honeymoon. There's going to be about 90 days, 100 days early next year when he's fresh in Washington, when people will listen, when they'll give him the benefit of the doubt, when the Congress will go all out. And that thing can pass, as Lyndon Johnson saw, very quickly, and I hope Jimmy Carter will use that 100 days.
Congressman Udall, what about your future? You're a young man still. You look like you look healthier and less tired than you did at the end of the primaries. Do you look forward 8 years from now?
No, you know, the generations come and go. I was thinking of the Republicans tonight. Reagan, Rockefeller, Goldwater, now Gerald Ford moving off the scene. The struggle for the succession in the Republican Party starts this morning with the younger generation coming aboard. We give our presidents 8 years, and Jimmy Carter's going to get 8 years, and at that point, you'll have a whole new generation of Democrats. Tonight, Muskie, Humphrey, Jackson, George Wallace, some of this generation move off the stage. I don't expect to be much of a factor in 1984. I'm probably over the hill, and if there's one thing worse than being over the hill, it's being over the hill and not knowing that you're over the hill.
Congressman Udall, I don't think you're over the hill. Thank you very much for talking to us. Good luck.
Good. Sure.
We were talking to Congressman Udall, and we have talked before about the impact of the vice presidential candidates in this election. It's something Lou Harris has measured. Lou, do you agree that Walter Mondale may have been a smart decision on Jimmy Carter's part?
Yes, Harry. Our polls throughout the course of the last 2 months have shown that Senator Mondale, when we mentioned him in the ticket, that is a Carter Mondale versus Ford Dole ticket, consistently added 2 points to the Carter column. And these 2 points were in the North. I think all night we've seen this 3-point margin that Carter's been running ahead, but in the North, outside of the South, it's been dead even. Now, if Jimmy Carter had been trailing by those 2 points all night long, that Senator Mondale, we can prove, added to the ticket, he might have lost this election. I'd say that the debates between Carter and Ford didn't seem to have much effect, but the debate for vice president between Mondale and Dole, Mondale won decisively, 55 to 29%. So that debate might have been very critical. I'd say that Jimmy Carter owes Fritz Mondale a lot tonight, just maybe this election. But then Jimmy Carter had the good sense to pick him, Harry.
Thank you very much, Lou. We'll be continuing our summation of this long and interesting night when coming up next we have more of our continuous election coverage right after this. We still have some states which have not decided who they want to be president, and not only who they want to be president, but in some cases who they want to represent themselves in the Senate. And beginning with Howard K. Smith, let's sum those up.
Well, I think the foremost of those states that are undecided, I think California will be decided when time comes, but is Ohio. Ohio, with 97% of the vote in. Now the two candidates have less than 1,000 votes between them. 49%, a big 49% for Carter, a small 49% for Ford. And in Oregon, with 78% of the votes precincts reporting, Ford is ahead, 49% to 47%. And that's where we leave it.
Well, going from east to west, Maine is still undecided. 49% of the vote for Ford and 48% of the vote for Carter, with 97% of the precincts in. And then going all the way across the country to California, where it was predicted that Ford would win. At this point, with 70% of the precincts in, Carter is leading with 58% of the vote to Ford's 49%. And if Carter takes that, then the pollster in California, Fields, who's very highly respected, will have been wrong. Speaking of being wrong, there are 3 bellwether states, that is 3 states that have been right in so many elections that people look at them, and they have all been wrong in this election. That's New Mexico, New Jersey, and Connecticut. They went to Ford. And now we're going to go to Frank Reynolds.
No, we're going
to Lou
to
Harris. I'm sorry to tell us why the election went as it did. Lou has some thoughts.
Lou, the question is, what are the 3 reasons why the election turned out the way it did?
Howard, the 3 things really going for Jimmy Carter in the end were: 1, he wasn't out of Washington, D.C., which was thought to be out of touch with the country. 72% thought he was a man of high integrity, and he consistently showed real compassion for the underdog. 69% felt that. And in the end, those gave real substance to Jimmy Carter's claim that he should be president.
Thank you very much, Lou. There's at least one big senatorial election as yet undecided, and an interesting story of those races tonight. Frank Reynolds?
Harry, it's the only senatorial contest that ABC News has not been able to project a winner, and that is, of course, in the state of California. All the others, all 32 actually, we've projected the victor. But in California now, with 71% of the precincts in, you can see how incredibly tight this race is. It's just opened up a little bit now, even as we speak, with Hayakawa, the Republican candidate, moving ahead now by 1 percentage point, 49%, over the incumbent Democratic Senator John Tunney. The key precincts report that we're getting is a little bit ahead of the raw vote total, which is reflected on the board here. And according to our key precincts, Hayakawa still has a 2-point lead in the key precincts throughout the state. Also, the returns are coming in rather slowly from certain Republican areas of the state, where Hayakawa is expected, of course, to do quite well. He is winning very big in Orange County and in San Diego, and in some other Republican counties, they seem to be having problems in getting the votes counted. So Hayakawa's strength on the raw vote total boards there may not be truly indicative of his final strength. And at this point, although it's been seesawing back and forth all over the place tonight, Hayakawa seems to be in a fairly good position, and certainly he's within striking distance of unseating a Democratic incumbent, John Tenney. Now, as I said, all the others have already been determined as far as ABC is concerned, and there are quite a few of them. We'll run down the list for you very quickly. Moynihan in New York unseated Jim Buckley. Metzenbaum beat Taft in Ohio. Heinz beat Green in Pennsylvania. Sasser beat Brock, another incumbent, ousted in Tennessee. Don Riegel won in Michigan over a Republican candidate, even though President Ford carried the state. Zorinsky, a Democrat, won in Nebraska. That was not widely expected. Stafford, Senator Robert Stafford, the incumbent, won as expected, really, in the state of Vermont. In Connecticut, Lowell Weicker won re-election. An upset in Utah, Orrin Hatch, a Republican, defeated a Senate fixture, Frank Moss. In Indiana, Vance Hartke was defeated by Richard Lugar. In Montana, the Democratic candidate, John Melcher, won as expected. In New Mexico, Joseph Montoya was retired by Harrison Schmitt, the former astronaut, who now moves on to the floor of the Senate from walking on the moon. In Arizona, the Democratic candidate, Dennis DeConcini, won. In Texas, Benson took it without any problem. Sarbanes won as expected. In Maryland, that removed J. Glenn Bell, the Republican incumbent. In Missouri, the Republican candidate, John Danforth, won. Yes, he won there, even though the governor apparently is having some difficulty, the Republican governor. In Delaware, Senator Roth won re-election. In Rhode Island, John Chafee, the Republican candidate, won, taking the seat now held by John Pastore. Massachusetts, Kennedy, no surprise there. In Minnesota, Humphrey. And let's see, is that the rest of the list? No. Pete Williams won in New Jersey, as expected. Jackson, Muskie, Proxmire, Harry Byrd Jr. in Virginia. Lawton Childs, as expected, in Florida, but a surprise in Wyoming, where Gail McGee was defeated by Malcolm Wallop, a state senator. Still some more, no surprise about Cannon. Burdick won in North Dakota. Matsunuga won in Hawaii, taking a seat now held by a Republican. In West Virginia and in Mississippi, both Byrd and Stennis had no opposition. The count, as the way it goes right now, shows 62 Democrats and 37 Republicans. The current count in the Senate, 62 Democrats and 38 Republicans. But we're still waiting, of course, for that one very important state with 71% of the reports in, with a very tight race between Hayakawa and Tunney. All right, Ann?
Senator's race is frank. Republicans may lose one seat. It's still a neck-and-neck battle in Missouri. Kit Bond, the incumbent Republican, can't get any closer than about 2 percentage points behind his Democratic challenger, Joseph Teasdale, still running a good, it has been 20,000 votes ahead all evening. Taking a quick look at the states which have come out with winners or losers this evening. Beginning in Illinois, Jim Thompson got what he wanted, the governorship as a Republican and a comfortable 1 million vote margin. Washington State has Dixie Lee Ray. North Carolina's Lieutenant Governor James Hunt moves up to governorship. West Virginia has a Rockefeller. This one's a Democrat, John D. Rockefeller IV. North Dakota is hanging on to its fiddle-playing Governor Arthur Link. Vermont is taking a Republican this time, Richard Snelling. Montana, it's Thomas Judge hanging on despite a Watergate that has hit him and his state incumbency. Utah, a Democrat, Scott Matheson beating a Republican. Rhode Island will have its Lieutenant Governor, Joseph Garrity, move up to governor. New Hampshire, Meldrum Thompson hanging on, the Republican who has a comfortable 58% of the vote. In Delaware, a Republican takes over from a Democrat, Pierre DuPont, the congressman. Arkansas, David Pryor, no trouble being reelected as the Democratic governor there. And in Indiana, the same is true of Otis Bowen, the Republican comfortable margin of reelection there. Again, only one state in jeopardy, that is Missouri, and that would be the only change of hands. If Kit Bond loses in Missouri, that will be the one gain by the Democrats. Don Farmer has a lot of race to say grace over in the House of Representatives.
Well, I will surprise you by not running down the 435 newly elected members of the House of Representatives. I can tell you, however, that the Democrats have kept just about the same number they had before, almost a 2-to-1 majority. Even so, the 95th will not be a veto-proof Congress because Democrats, being what they are, a diverse and diligent bunch of characters, So when President-elect Carter, as president, begins his effort to reorganize the government, for example, he will find that the Democratic-controlled Congress will not roll over and play dead for him. He will have problems with government reorganization, he will have problems with tax reform, and with energy, perhaps. One thing that is significant, I think, the Watergate Democrats' landslide of 1974 has become the landfill of 1976. The Republicans can't kick around those Watergate freshmen anymore, calling them simply aberrations. They're there to stay now, at least for the next 2 years. They are important. The Congress then, with 5 seats left undecided, still too close to call. 2-to-1 Democratic majority in the House. Important for Jimmy Carter. They're going to enjoy working with him, but he'll not find them totally cooperative at all times. And that's the way it looks in the House right now, Harry.
Thank you, Don. Throughout the evening and the morning, Theodore H. White has been with us. And do you have some final thoughts, Theodore H. White, on what has happened to us in the last 10 hours?
Well, what we've seen tonight, I think, is a rupture of historic dimension in American political life. This is the first president in 50 years who's not come up through the corridors of the East Coast in Washington to national fame. This man has come totally from the outside, as no one has done since Woodrow Wilson. It's been a small-town band of men who've analyzed the North and the East as if they were picking apart joints and reaching nerve pressure points. It's been a spectacular performance, cleanly and well fought. But I think the real test comes now, whether these people who have taken apart the old system can somehow translate politics into power and make a government work. That's their real test, and we're on the threshold, possibly, of the greatest change since the New Deal in 1932. Back to you, Harry.
Thank you, Theodore. Eddie, we have some time now for some final thoughts among Barbara and Howard and myself, and the man who's actually been on the air more than any of us, 7 minutes out of every half hour, who sits up at a direct, at 12 o'clock high for me, Steve Bell, who's been handling a portion of this broadcast throughout the evening. I have only one final thought, and it's this. I don't want to reveal how I voted, and I'm not revealing how I voted. But I will say that there is a tremendous disappointment for me in Jimmy Carter becoming president, and it relates back to something somebody said to me in 1960, and I didn't understand the significance of it then. He said, you know, for the first time in my life, the President of the United States is going to be younger than I am. Now, in this case, Jimmy Carter will be less than a year younger, but I hate it. Barbara?
I just think of some of the familiar names that we've grown so used to. Men who are going to be looking for jobs in January. The Secretary of the Treasury, William Simon, he's talked about running for governor of New Jersey. Of course, Henry Kissinger. Maybe he'll write that book for which it says that he may receive $2 million. Ron Nessen was a reporter at NBC. Will he go back to becoming a reporter? Will he write that book? What will happen to Press Secretary Ron Nessen? Jim Lynn, the budget director, well, he can go back to being a lawyer. Alan Greenspan has a business in New York that he can go back to, an economics business. Dick Cheney, the president's chief of staff, he does not have a job. At one point he was a broker. Donald Rumsfeld, at one point was a congressman. He can go back to that, but there are going to be a lot of names. It's taken us a while to get used to, and now we have a lot of new, fresh, and primarily young faces and new names to recognize.
Earl Butz had already retired. But, I'd like to get from Steve Bell the thoughts that he's gotten by being 30 feet higher than the rest of us during the evening. Steve?
Harry, it's been a real education up here in the ABC Crow's Nest, looking down and listening in on the rest of you most of the evening. But as you know, I also am an Iowan, and I think I got my first revelation on Jimmy Carter during the Iowa caucus last January when we were out there. And I went back to my hometown of Oskaloosa because I wanted to see what all this attention was doing to a typical small town in Iowa. And I knew the people there. I knew who ran the Democratic Party. I knew who the real workers were and what should have been happening. And we went into Oskaloosa and spent 3 days and found out that something very different was happening. This guy, Jimmy Carter, had come in, and he had attracted people who were not necessarily political traditionalists or activists, but he had gotten them convinced that he could do something special. And Jimmy Carter carried the town, the county, and of course the Iowa caucus. And I think that one thing we should note in these final moments tonight is not only that he had a good organization, that eventually he had the Democratic Party that he had Walter Mondale to help him with a couple of percentage points. But Jimmy Carter was the only candidate who from the very first said, hey, I realize we've all got a political pain in the stomach. There's a crisis of the spirit in the secular sense in this country, and I'm here to help you do something about it. We're good people, we're a good country, and if we just love each other and get together, we can do something. And it sounds maudlin coming from anybody but him, but I think it was a factor.
And now he has to deliver on it.
I think that's true.
I'd like for our final comments to turn to our Dean, Howard K. Smith.
Well, Harry, the historic feature of this to me is that a Southerner, not being anyone else's vice president, has made it on his own for the first time since Zachary Taylor, since long before the Civil War. I don't think people who've not been raised in the South realize how regional the South is, and the rest of the nation unconsciously looks on it as the most regional of regions, and the South looks upon itself as the most regional of regions. There's a separation between the South and the rest of the nation. It's been there a long time. It's caused complexes. It's caused some magnificent literature by people who have exploited those complexes, like Tennessee Williams and William Faulkner, but those complexes have not helped. And now I think they'll go, because we have now a president who is a Southerner who made it on his own from the South.
Thank you, Howard. I'd like to mention the literally hundreds of people, it looks like hundreds of them just in this room and at all the remotes and all the other places who have helped ABC News put this evening on and who have helped us. I'd like to say good night for them and thanks to them, and good night for Barbara Walters, for Howard K. Smith,